The space station Harmony Edge floated quietly in deep space. It was built between two major sectors, human space and Taurian space. Both sides had agreed to a peace treaty only 2 years ago. Things were still tense, smiles were rare, every step was measured, every word was chosen carefully. Milo, a young human technician, walked down the bright metal hallway of the station, holding a small toolbox in his left hand. His hair was a little messy, and his boots made a soft sound as he walked. He had been called to the control center for a new assignment. He didn't know what it was, but he hoped it wasn't cleaning out more broken food processors again. When he entered the control room, a human officer greeted him with a nod. Beside the officer stood a tall figure with light blue scales and smooth, feather-like patterns around her face. She wore a sleek uniform with silver symbols on her shoulder. Her eyes were sharp and bright, but not cold. "This is Riva," the officer said. "She's a science officer from the Taurian side. You'll be assisting her on a field check of the outer power nodes. She's one of the best." Milo blinked. He had never worked this closely with a Taurian before. He'd seen them on the station. Always calm, quiet, focused. Many humans still didn't trust them. But Milo wasn't the kind of person who judged too quickly. "I'm ready to help," he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Riva gave a small nod, but her face didn't change much. "We leave in 1 hour," she said. "Bring only what is needed." Milo nodded and smiled, but she had already turned and walked out of the room with perfect balance and precision. The shuttle moved quietly through space. Inside, Milo checked the toolset while Riva studied energy maps on a glowing screen. The mission was simple: check the outer power relays that kept the station running. But the location was far from normal routes and sometimes passed through dust storms and magnetic fields. Milo tried to lighten the mood. "So, Riva," he said, "do you like working on the station?" "I do not dislike it," she said without looking away from her screen. Milo gave a small laugh. "Okay, that's something." She finally turned her head slightly. Humans use laughter in strange ways. "Do you often laugh when you are not happy?" He scratched the back of his head. "No, I mean sometimes we laugh when we're nervous or when we want to feel relaxed." She looked at him for a second, then nodded. "I will note that." When they arrived at the power node, Riva stepped out first, scanning the area. Milo followed. The place was quiet. Space dust floated around the corners of the old station ring. The power lines were humming, but the readings showed a drop. They moved together, checking each relay. Milo passed her tools, read data, and kept the small repair drone running. After 2 hours, the work was nearly done. Suddenly, a sharp buzz came from a side panel. The field around the node started to shift. "A magnetic pocket is forming," Riva said quickly. "It is unstable." Milo looked around. "We need to leave." "Not yet," she replied. "I must stabilize it first. If not, the field could damage the entire energy grid." Before he could argue, Riva stepped forward, hands moving fast across the controls. Sparks flew. The wind from the magnetic pulse made their suits vibrate. One wrong move could burn the whole system. Milo watched her, amazed. She didn't blink. Her fingers moved with grace and focus. He stepped beside her, handed her the tool she needed without her asking. She glanced at him. "You learn fast," she said. "I try," he answered, smiling. Just then, a small burst of energy flared from the side panel. It came straight toward him. Riva reacted in a flash. She pulled him back, turning her body to block the spark. It struck her suit, but the shield absorbed most of it. Still, it left a light burn mark on the fabric. Milo looked at her. "Wide-eyed. Are you okay?" "I will repair the damage later," she said, brushing her suit. "The system is now stable." He looked at the console, then back at her. "You're sweet," he said without thinking. Riva froze. She didn't move. Her feathers twitched. Her eyes were still locked on him, but her pupils had widened just a little. Milo realized what he said. He didn't mean to say it out loud. He opened his mouth to fix it. But before he could speak, she whispered something. "Say it again." Milo blinked. "What?" "The word." She said, Say it again. He hesitated. Sweet. She stood still for another moment, then nodded once, then turned and walked toward the shuttle without another word. Back on the shuttle. Things were quiet. Milo checked the systems while Riva sat in silence. After a long pause, she said, humans use sweet to describe things that are kind or pleasant. You used it for me. Yeah, Milo said softly. Because you saved me. You didn't have to. But you did. I needed you alive to finish the task, she said calmly. But it was also because I did not want to see you hurt. Milo smiled. Then that's what makes you sweet. She looked at him again, her feathers softening. No one has ever used that word for me, she said. Well, Milo said. I guess it's a first time for everything. After the mission, Milo returned to his small room on Harmony Edge. The walls were plain, and the bed was simple, just like most human quarters on the station. He sat down, took off his boots, and leaned back, thinking about what had happened. He remembered the moment clearly. Riva had saved him without hesitation. He had called her sweet. And then, something strange had happened. She froze. Her feathers had twitched, and her voice had changed just a little when she said, say it again. Milo didn't know what it meant for a Taurine to react like that. He wasn't even sure if he had embarrassed her. All he knew was that the word had landed in her mind like a spark in dry grass, across the station, in the quieter Taurine wing. Riva stood in her private research space. Her room was clean and cold, with walls that gave off a soft blue glow. She stared at a screen filled with translated human expressions. The word sweet blinked at the top dot in the Taurine language. There was no word that matched it exactly. They had words for kind, soft, and flavored, but not for something that meant all those things at once. She replayed Milo's voice in her memory. The way he had said the word gentle, surprised, honest. It made her feathers shift again. She didn't understand the feeling. The next morning, they were both called to the briefing room. The officer in charge, Commander Hale, stood near the screen. We've received a request from the exploration vessel Silver Current, he said. They're heading to a rogue planet near the Luma Drift. It's emitting energy waves that we've never seen before. Human and Taurine Command have agreed to send a joint team to investigate. Milo looked around the room. Half were humans, half were Taurines. He saw Riva enter quietly and take her place near the front. Her eyes did not meet his. Each team will have a Taurine and a human member. Commander Hale continued. We need strong cooperation and full trust between partners. Milo, you'll go with Riva. Milo gave a small nod. Yes, sir. Riva said nothing but accepted the assignment. A few days later, the Silver Current left the station. The ship was larger than Milo had expected, with curved walls and a quiet humming sound that came from deep inside the engines. The journey to Luma Drift would take 3 days. Milo spent most of the first day checking tools and preparing systems. He didn't see much of Riva. She was busy in the ship's science lab, running energy simulations. But on the second evening, she entered the tech bay where Milo was working alone. She stood near the doorway and spoke softly. I would like to speak with you. Milo turned, surprised. Of course. She walked in slowly and sat down near the console. I've been studying your language, she said. Specifically, the way humans use emotional words. Milo blinked. Oh, okay. She looked at him directly. The word you used, sweet. I understand the meaning now, but not the purpose. Why did you say it to me? Milo scratched his head. Honestly, it just came out. You saved me without thinking. You didn't have to do that, and I thought it was brave and kind. So I said it. She was quiet for a moment. In Taurine culture, emotion is shown through service and silence. We don't use many words to explain feelings. When you said that word, it made my thoughts stop. I didn't know how to respond. Milo nodded slowly. I didn't mean to confuse you. I wasn't confused, she said. I was surprised. No one has ever used a kind word like that for me. At least, not in that way. He smiled. Well, maybe it's time someone did. She tilted her head, then stood. I will continue to observe human speech. Then, after a pause, she added, I didn't dislike the word. I just didn't know it could feel like that. She left the room without another word. When the silver current reached the Luma drift, the crew gathered. Near the observation deck, outside, the rogue planet floated in the blackness. It was dark and cracked like old stone, but glowing lines of green and blue ran across its surface like veins of light. The scanners showed strange pulses coming from deep underground. Some of the signals even looked like patterns to perfect. To be random, could be life, the captain said, or something like intelligence. Riva and Milo were sent down together in a scout pod to explore a shallow crater. Where the signal was strongest, the pod landed softly on the rocky ground. The air outside was thin, but breathable with light suits dot as they walked toward the glowing rock. Milo said, "This place feels alive." Riva agreed. "The signal is repeating. It might be a message." They set up the equipment and started. Scanning, Milo worked on tuning the receiver while Riva took notes. After an hour, Riva spoke again. "You said something else that day. When I asked you to say the word again, you looked surprised." Milo smiled without looking up. "I didn't expect you to ask. You seemed serious, and the way you said it felt powerful." "I meant it," she replied. "Words have weight when spoken with purpose." "I wanted to feel that word again." Milo turned to her. "Do you want me to say it now?" She looked at him. "Not yet. I want to know what it means from you. Not from a dictionary." They stood in silence for a few seconds. Suddenly, the scanner beeped. A signal came through. It was a soft pulse, repeating in threes, almost like a voice humming. Milo looked at Riva. "I think it's calling out." She nodded. "Then we must answer." The signal from Luma Drift grew stronger each hour. It pulsed in soft beats, always in groups of three. It didn't sound like language, but it didn't sound random either. Milo sat beside the small receiver, checking the rhythm again and again. The sound reminded him of waves or quiet singing. Riva stood close, watching the pattern on the screen. Her eyes followed the shapes without blinking. She had seen many things in her work, but this was different. This was not just energy. It was something trying to be heard. "We are not alone," she said. Milo nodded. "Not just life. Something intelligent." They were inside a cave now, deep in the rock below the glowing surface. The walls sparkled with green crystal lines. Each time the signal pulsed, the crystals lit up softly. It felt peaceful, like the planet was breathing. "Do you think it understands we're here?" Milo asked. Riva stepped closer to the wall and placed her hand gently on one of the glowing lines. "I believe it feels us," she answered. "Maybe not in the way we understand, but it knows." Milo smiled. "That's more than most people do." Riva looked at him, confused for a second, then gave a small nod. Back on the silver current, the crew studied the data they brought from the cave. The energy signal didn't match anything in human or Taurian records. It had emotion behind it. That was the strange part. Machines don't send signals with feelings. But this one did. The captain called for a meeting. Scientists, engineers, and officers from both species sat around the long table. Riva and Milo were seated beside each other, the pulses changing. One of the human scientists said, "It now matches the same frequency as Riva's scanner." Riva leaned forward. "That is not possible unless the source is copying us." A Taurian officer stood. "We must be careful. If this thing is alive, it may not be friendly." Milo raised his hand. "It hasn't done anything to harm us. We were inside its caves. It could have blocked us, but it didn't. I think it wants to understand us." There was silence for a moment. The captain finally said, "Then we need a reply, a shared message. One word or signal that means peace." Riva thought deeply. "It must be simple, something real, something felt." Her eyes slowly moved toward Milo. She didn't speak, but he understood. He nodded. "What if we sent the word sweet?" A few heads turned. Some humans looked confused. The Taurians blinked slowly, not sure what he meant. One scientist laughed a little. "That's not a science word." But Riva spoke. "Clearly, it is an emotional word, a strong one. Humans use it to express kindness, safety, and warmth. If this signal understands feeling, that word might be enough." The captain agreed. We'll try it. They returned to the surface and set up the message transmitter. Riva stood beside the panel, her finger ready to send the signal. Milo stood next to her, watching the glowing lines in the rocks around them. One word, he said. That's all we send. Yes, she answered. He looked at her. Do you still want to hear it again? Like you asked before. She turned toward him, her feathers lifted softly. I do. Milo smiled. You're sweet, Riva. The word passed between them like light through glass. She didn't freeze this time. She didn't look away. She only stood quietly, letting the sound settle in her mind. Then she pressed the button. The message was sent. For the next few hours, nothing happened. The pulse from the planet stayed the same. Some of the crew began to doubt. Others thought the signal was just reacting to random movement. But Riva and Milo stayed by the cave. They believed it was listening. Later that night, when most of the team had returned to the ship, the pulse changed. A soft wave of light moved through the ground. The cave walls glowed brighter. The crystals sang a new pattern, softer and smoother than before. It was not just a reply. It was a voice. Riva recorded the pattern quickly. Her hands were steady, but her heart was racing. Milo stood still, staring at the lights. The new signal had 3 clear beats, then a pause. Then 3 again. It repeated our message. He whispered. No, Riva said. It reshaped it. The pattern was similar to the signal they had sent, but now it had rhythm, tone, and something else, a warm echo. The cave had replied with its own version of sweet. Milo felt something rise in his chest. This was real. This was first contact, not with a machine. Not with a species like theirs, but with a mind made of energy and crystal. Back on the ship, the data was studied again. The shared signal was officially recorded as the first emotional communication with a non-biological life form. Some called it the sweet signal. Others just called it the pulse. Command sent a message back to Harmony Edge, asking for a longer stay at Luma Drift. They wanted to begin peaceful studies. Riva was assigned as lead science officer. Milo was offered the position of chief human liaison. Before accepting, he met with Riva in the ship's garden room. It was a small space, full of earth plants and soft light. Riva stood among the green leaves, holding a small flower. You came, she said. I wouldn't leave without talking to you first. She looked at him. I studied the word more. Sweet. It means more than kindness. He nodded. Sometimes it means care. Sometimes even love. She looked at the flower in her hand. I don't fully understand those feelings yet, but I think I want to. Milo stepped closer. We can figure it out together. She gave a slow smile, soft and small. Then say it again. He gently touched her hand. You're sweet, Riva. The days on Silver Current passed slowly as the crew studied the new signal from Luma Drift. Every time the crystals pulsed, they seemed calmer, softer. The cave was no longer just a place for data. It felt like a living part of the ship's mission, a place with feeling. Milo woke up earlier than usual. He walked through the quiet hallway of the ship and headed to the observation dome. It was one of his favorite spots. The stars were visible through the clear glass above. Endless black sky filled with tiny lights. Riva was already there. She stood near the center. Looking out, her arms were behind her back. Her head moved slightly as if she was listening to something far away. You like the view too? Milo asked. As he entered, she turned slowly. It is peaceful here. The silence reminds me of Tarain High Cliffs. He moved beside her, leaving a comfortable space between them, back on Earth. We used to watch the stars and dream about meeting life beyond our world, Milo said. Now we're here, talking to something made of energy and stone. Riva nodded. We expected machines. Logic, coldness, but this is warm. The pulse feels alive. They stood together, without speaking for a moment. Then Riva looked at him, with curious eyes. May I ask something personal? Of course, he replied. Why did you call me sweet that day? Truly, Milo smiled, looking a bit shy. Because I meant it. You saved me. But it wasn't just that. You were calm and kind. You didn't make me feel small. You made me feel safe. She studied his face as he spoke. Tarains do not use Emotional words often. We show feelings through action, not speech. But since then, I have listened closely to the way humans talk. Some words carry deep power. Milo nodded. Sometimes one word is enough. Riva tilted her head. I tried using that word once with another human officer. I said the ship's system was sweet. He looked confused. Milo laughed. It depends how you say it. Sweet can mean soft, kind, or even tasty. But when I said it to you, it was about feeling. She turned to the glass. Then I want to learn the feeling, not just the word. That same afternoon, a signal alert echoed through the ship. The pulse from Luma Drift had changed again. This time it was faster and sharper, almost like a warning. The command team rushed to the science deck. Screens showed bright waves rising under the cave. The crystals were shaking. Milo and Reeve arrived together. Riva checked the numbers. Her expression changed. The pulse is not angry, she said. It is scared. The captain frowned. What would scare a planet? Milo thought for a moment. Maybe it's reacting to us. Maybe something we're doing is wrong. A message came from the deep scan team. One of their drills had gone too far. They had touched a crystal chamber without permission. We must stop the drilling now, Riva said. The planet thinks we are attacking it. The captain gave the order. All deep scans and drills were paused. The crew waited. Slowly, the pulse returned to its earlier rhythm. The cave had calmed down again. Riva stepped back from the panel. Her shoulders relaxed. This life form does not speak with words, she said. It speaks through feeling. We must treat it like a living being, not a lab sample. Milo agreed. It's like a child learning how to trust. The captain looked at both of them. You two understand it better than anyone. From now on, all communication efforts will go through you. Later that night, Milo visited the garden room again. He found Riva there, sitting among the soft green plants. She held a tablet in her hand, full of translated human phrases. You're still studying? He asked. Yes, she said. I'm writing something called a whisper protocol. What's that? It's a test. I want to know if Taurians can learn human emotional speech without losing who we are. It will be a guide for others. Milo sat beside her. That sounds like a big step. She looked at him. Some will not agree with it. Some believe emotion is weakness. I think emotion is strength, Milo replied. It takes courage to care. Riva touched one of the leaves gently. When you called me sweet, it woke something inside, a feeling I had no name for. I did not want to lose it. He looked at her and said softly, You won't lose it. You're just learning how to hold it. For a moment, their hands touched on the bench, just lightly. She didn't move away. The next morning, Riva met with the Taurian officers in the ship's meeting hall. She explained the whisper protocol and her thoughts about human emotion. She shared her experience in the cave and the communication they had built through a single word. Some officers listened, others remained silent. One stood up and spoke. You risk weakening our tradition, he said. Words like sweet and kind are not our way. Riva stood straight. Her voice did not shake. Our way is understanding. Our purpose is growth. The humans are not soft. They are strong in a different way. I believe we can be both Taurian and understanding. Another officer asked, What proof do you have? Riva looked around the room. Then she said, Call me sweet. There was silence from the back. Milo stepped forward. His voice was calm and warm. You're sweet. Riva. This time, Riva did not blush. She did not freeze. She smiled. And in that moment, something changed in the room. Not just in her, but in others too. A small shift, a new thought. Maybe feeling was not weakness. Maybe it was the beginning of something greater. The meeting had ended, but its effects were still echoing through the ship. Some of the Taurian officers were silent as they left the room. Others spoke quietly, sharing thoughts in their own language. Riva stood near the window, watching the stars outside. Her mind was calm, but her heart was full of questions. Milo walked up beside her. You were brave. She turned her head slightly. I spoke what I believe. I know, Milo said. But it's not easy to speak like that in front of your own people. Riva looked at him with quiet eyes. You gave me the word. I only gave it back to them. He smiled. Still, you're the one who made it powerful. In the following days, Riva began sharing the Whisper protocol with selected officers. It was not a rule book. It was more like a guide, a way to understand humans through feeling, not just logic. It explained how words like sweet, kind, and gentle could carry weight. Even in silence, some Taurians found it interesting. Others rejected it, a few feared it. One officer, named Tarvik, was openly against it. He approached Riva in the ship quarter. You are changing too fast, Tarvik said. You forget what it means to be Taurian. I remember, Riva replied, but we are here to learn. That is also part of being Taurian. Tarvik shook his head. No, we study, we observe, but we do not become like them. I am not becoming human, she said. I am learning how they feel, so we can understand each other. Tarvik gave her a sharp look and walked away without answering. Milo saw the exchange from across the hall. He didn't interfere, but later, he found Riva in the engine bay, checking the scanner system. Everything okay? He asked. Yes. She said, there's resistance, but that is normal when something new begins. He nodded. You don't have to face it alone. She looked at him. I know. While the Whisper protocol spread slowly among the crew, the energy on Luma Drift began to shift again. This time, it was not fear or warning. It was curiosity. The signals started taking new shapes. They were no longer just soft pulses. Some had rising tones, almost like questions. Riva and Milo worked together, decoding them. It's learning our patterns, Milo said. Riva nodded, and it is asking something. They checked the repeated signal again. It looked like a shape, a loop, then a sharp turn. It had rhythm. I think it wants to know how we feel, Milo said. How do we answer that? Riva asked. Milo paused, then said, with a story, a simple one. Riva tilted her head. A human story? Yes, he said. We don't always answer with facts. Sometimes we answer with feeling. Maybe we can send the story of how we met, how we learned to trust each other. Riva thought for a moment, then agreed. They spent 2 nights working on the message. Riva chose the visual patterns. Milo chose the words. They built a short sequence showing their first mission, the power node, the moment he said sweet, and the connection they made. Then they added the most important part, a single word. Placed at the end. Sweet. They sent the message from the shuttle. Near the cave, the signal flowed through the glowing crystals. For a while, everything was still. Then the reply came. It was not a direct answer. It was a feeling. The light grew warmer. The pulse slowed to a calm heartbeat. The cave glowed softly, not bright, not loud, just warm and steady. It understands. Riva whispered. Milo smiled. That's its way of saying the same thing. Back on the ship, news about the signal spread fast. Scientists were excited. Officers were surprised. Even those who had doubted the Whisper protocol began to watch more closely. Riva gave a short talk in the main lab. This planet does not speak with sound. It speaks with emotion. We sent a story, not a command. It replied with peace. This is not just science. This is understanding. After the meeting, Tarvik approached again. But this time, he was calm. You believe emotion is useful, he said. I do, Riva replied. He nodded slowly. Then teach me how to listen better. She looked surprised, then gave a small nod. I will. Later, Milo and Riva met again in the garden room. It had become their quiet place. The plants were glowing faintly under the soft lights. Things are changing, Milo said. Yes, Riva replied. Not just on the planet, on the ship, in us. He looked at her. You're becoming something new. She smiled slightly. You helped me see the beauty in emotion. He looked down, thoughtful. And you helped me believe emotion can build bridges, not just break them. There was silence for a while. Then Riva said, I have one more question. Milo looked up, asked, do humans feel something more than sweet? He blinked. You mean, like love? She nodded. Is that what comes after sweet? Sometimes, he said, if you let it grow. She looked at the soft leaves of the plant. Beside her, Then I want to let it grow. The silver current was quiet as it traveled back toward Harmony Edge. The mission on Luma Drift was over, but the story of the energy signal and the Whisper Protocol had begun something new. Between humans and Taurians, people talked about it quietly in corridors and mess halls. Some were hopeful, others still unsure. Milo and Riva sat in the ship's lounge. The room was filled with soft light and gentle hums from the engines. Outside the windows, the stars moved slowly. I heard the Council on Harmony Edge will decide soon about the Whisper Protocol, Milo said. They want to know if it is safe. Riva looked at him carefully. Safe or acceptable? Maybe both. Milo answered. She smiled faintly. Change is never easy. Milo reached out and took her hand gently. But sometimes it is needed. Riva looked down at their hands, then back at Milo. I have made a choice, she said softly, to follow what I believe is right, even if others disagree. Milo squeezed her hand. I stand with you. When they arrived at Harmony Edge, the station was busier than usual. Ships arrived and left. People moved quickly with purpose. The council chamber was filled with important officers from both sides. The topic of the day was clear the Whisper Protocol, and what it meant for the future. Riva and Milo were called to speak. Riva stood tall, her blue feathers shimmering in the light. Milo stood beside her. The room fell silent as she began. The Whisper Protocol is more than words. It is a way to understand each other. Humans use emotion not to weaken but to connect. I have seen it in their kindness, their courage, and their patience. She paused and looked at Milo. When I was called sweet, I felt something new, a feeling beyond logic. It made me open my mind to more. Milo added, we sent a message to Luma Drift. The planet answered with peace. It felt our story. That is proof that understanding is possible, not just between humans and Taurians, but with all life. Some council members nodded. Others looked thoughtful, but one elder Taurian officer stood. This protocol changes our tradition. It could make us soft, lose discipline, he said firmly. Riva replied, being open to feeling does not mean losing strength. It means gaining wisdom. The room was silent again. Then Milo spoke, if we don't try to understand, we risk losing everything. Peace is built on trust, and trust grows from care. The elder officer looked at them for a long moment, then sat down quietly. After the meeting, the council announced a vote. The Whisper Protocol would become an official experiment. It would be tested on more missions and in Taurian academies. It was a small step, but a hopeful one. Riva and Milo returned to their quarters, tired but happy. Your choice was brave, Milo said. Your choice was brave too, Riva replied. They sat close. Hands still joined. I want to learn more about human feelings, Riva said softly. Milo smiled. I want to teach you. Days passed, and the crew settled into their new roles. The ship prepared to leave for another joint mission. But before they left, Riva invited Milo to the observation dome. Under the stars, she looked at him with quiet hope. There's one feeling I want to understand better. Milo tilted his head. Which one? She smiled shyly. Love. Milo's smile grew. Love is many things. It can be gentle or strong. It can grow slowly or rush quickly. But it is always about care. She nodded. I want to feel it. He took her hand again. Then we will learn together. Their time on Silver Current became more than just missions and science. It became a story of friendship, trust, and quiet feelings that neither of them had expected. The word sweet was just the beginning. Outside, the stars continued to shine. Two species, so different but learning to understand, together. The Silver Current returned to Harmony Edge for the final time on their mission. The Whisper Protocol was now an accepted experiment, and the energy signal from Luma Drift had become a symbol of peace and understanding between humans and Taurians. Milo and Riva walked together through the busy corridors of the station. Their steps were easy, their faces calm. The word sweet had changed more than just their story. It had opened doors between two very different worlds. Riva stopped near the observation deck and looked out at the stars. They looked the same from every place in space. she said softly. Milo smiled. Some things don't change, even when everything else does. She turned to him. I have learned many new things on this journey. About humans, about feeling, and about myself. He looked at her with warmth, and I have learned the same. About Tarains and about trust. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Riva took a deep breath. There's one word I want to say. Milo waited, heart beating quietly. She looked into his eyes and said slowly, thank you. Milo smiled wide. You're welcome. The next day, the station held a celebration. Humans and Tarains gathered in the great hall. There was music, food from many worlds, and stories shared around glowing tables. The energy from Luma Drift was displayed on a large screen as a soft, glowing pulse. Riva and Milo were invited to speak. When Milo stood, he spoke with quiet strength. We began this mission as strangers from different worlds. But now, we are friends. We learned a new language, not just words, but feelings. We found that a simple word, sweet, could carry hope and peace. Riva joined him. The Whisper Protocol is not just about communication. It is about opening hearts and minds, about learning to care. The crowd cheered softly, and many faces shone with hope after the celebration. Milo and Riva walked to the garden room. It had become their special place. Riva looked at the plants and said, I'm ready to say more words now. Milo waited. Curious, she took his hand and said, You are kind. You are brave. You are sweet. He laughed softly. You're good at this. She smiled, her feathers softening. And you, Milo, you are important to me. He squeezed her hand gently. You are important to me too, Riva. Days passed, and their friendship grew. They shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments under the stars. They learned that the distance between their worlds was smaller than they thought. One evening, Riva and Milo stood on the observation deck. The stars above twinkled like tiny diamonds. Riva looked at Milo and asked, Do you believe in love? Milo smiled warmly. I do. Love is what brings us together. Even when the universe tries to keep us apart. She reached out and took his hand. Then I want to learn it with you. Milo nodded. Then we will. As the silver current prepared for its next mission, Milo and Riva stood together, ready to face the future. Their story was no longer just about a word said by mistake. It was about hope, trust, and the new beginnings that come from opening one's heart. The stars shone bright around them, and between two very different beings. A gentle light grew stronger, a light born from kindness, courage, and a single word, sweet.